Watching Superman released in 2025, I couldn't help but remember what made the older Superman movies truly fly high. Whether it was Christopher Reeve's charm and moral clarity or Zack Snyder's mythic grandeur, both gave Superman a sense of purpose, something larger than spectacle. Now, this new version starts off strong. The first half is genuine and engaging, showing glimpses of what could have been a refreshing reboot. The camera glides through the metropolis with a clean, modern texture. The flight sequences have that early sense of wonder. For a while, you feel like the character might finally find new ground between heroism and humanity, but then it stalls. The villain, this time, a new interpretation of Lex Luthor, is introduced with an intriguing setup. He's not physically stronger than Superman, but intellectually sharper. His rivalry is built on the idea of outsmarting rather than overpowering. On paper, that sounds promising, but the way it's executed on screen feels hollow. His motivation is simply jealousy, not the dark humor or the twisted brilliance of Gene Hackman's or Kevin Spacey's earlier portrayals. Even Jesse Eisenberg's eccentric take on Snyder's universe, while divisive, at least it had a manic energy and symbolic intent. Here, the villain comes off like a corporate rival throwing tantrums in a boardroom. He lacks menace, complexity, and most importantly, presence. That's the film's biggest problem. Superman 2025 is all surface. It's slick, expensive, and very watchable in moments, but once you look beneath, there's not much holding it together. Gone is the warmth of Reeves' Superman, the humanity behind the cape. Gone too is the operatic vision Snyder brought, even if his tone was divisive. What we have now is a film that's technically sound but emotionally unanchored. It feels like a studio effort to modernize Superman without really understanding what makes him timeless. Even the side characters who could have added texture are just there for the sake of skill. The Green Lantern cameo, for example, complete with a questionable haircut, feels like it was written during post-production just to link this film to a larger universe. It adds nothing. The same goes for the so-called Justice League pre-tease scenes. They look like placeholders, not story elements. Now, it's as if the movie is trying to remind us it's part of a franchise instead of letting its story breathe on its own. And then there's Superdog. I know, a small thing, but even here, the film misses the mark. It could have been a warm, endearing addition, a companion reflecting Superman's isolations or loyalty. Instead, it's pure CGI noise. The dog appears randomly, behaves like comic relief, and then suddenly turns savior when the script needs convenience. The connection between Superman and his dog could have been a small but heartfelt thread. Instead, it was a gimmick. Worse, the CGI is obvious. You can tell where the animation ends and the green screen begins, and in a film with this budget, that breaks immersion. Now, the second half drags under the weight of visual excess. The fights are loud, the destructions predictable, and the emotional stakes are non-existent. Even the moments that should have hit the hardest, where the Superman's quiet conversation with his adoptive parents, feel empty. There's no intimacy, no tension, no emotional payoff. In Reeves' version, those same scenes have rendered a moral reflection. In Snyder's films, they carried mythic weight, but here they are just filler between CGI storms. It's disappointing because the movie could have been something meaningful. There's an attempt, I'll give them that, to weave modern political undertones into the story. The subplot involves a fictional country called Bravia. Fishing disputes with its neighborly clearly mirrors to this geopolitical tension. It could have been a clever metaphor, Superman caught between diplomacy and heroism, between moral responsibility and power. But instead of being explored, it's treated like a background decoration. The film brushes against these ideas, then rushes back to another explosion. You sense there's something deeper trying to surface, but the screenplay never allows it to. Now, that's the worrying trend with superhero films now. The illusion of depth without actually taking time to explore it. Everything feels rushed towards the next digital spectacle, and spectacle itself is starting to lose its impact. Now, how many of you in current movies start to fiddle with your phone when you start to see the CGI? It happens here too. When everything is loud and glossy, nothing feels so special. The charm of the older Superman movies was their restraint. They didn't need to show you the world ending every 15 minutes. They made you feel like it might. Even Lex Luthor in those films were comedic as he was. and had a twisted logic, a self-awareness that made his villainy more human. In Superman 2025, there's none of that duality. Instead, he's just an envy masquerading as intelligence. And perhaps that's why, as an audience, it's hard to connect. This Superman doesn't seem to struggle with being human. He just acts like a superhero reacting to set pieces. There's no personal stake, no moral dilemma, just a CGI backdrop and a hero who never seems in real danger, physically or emotionally. For younger viewers, it might really look cool. For those who grew up with Reeves' sincerity or Snyder's ambition, it feels synthetic. Technically, yes, this movie is impressive. The sound design, especially in 4K Dolby Atmos, is phenomenal. The bass during the fight sequences is thunderous and the score soars when it needs to. The Steelbook edition looks fantastic too, a bold metallic finish with that classic S emblem embossed across the cover. The inner artwork showing a silhouette of Superman is also striking, almost more evocative than the film itself. Now, if you're a collector, it's worth having for the packaging alone. But as a film, Superman 2025 leaves you wishing it reached higher. It's competent but uninspired, expensive but hollow. The first half promises reinvention, the second half settles for imitation. The villain never becomes interesting, the supporting cast barely matters, and the subtext about politics, jealousy, and power gets lost in the noise. For all its attempts of relevance, it forgets that what made Superman great was never his power. It was his compassion, his restraint, and his ability to make us believe goodness can still exist in a broken world. So for me, Superman 2025 is a mixed flight, a solid launch that quickly loses altitude. The direction is stylish, the visuals are polished, but the heart is missing. I'll give a 3 out of 5 for this movie. Not terrible, not great, just another modern superhero film trapped in the shadows of its predecessors. It reminds us that when storytelling becomes just an accessory to CGI, even legends like Superman can start to feel weightless. Now this movie is a must-watch.